What's the worst business idea you've seen someone try to execute? Father-in-law drove 18 hours down to Florida to catch shrimp. Filled his tiny car with tons of the shrimp and drove back. It took days to vacuum seal the shrimp that hadn't gone bad, only to sell a few bags to some friends. The car smelled like seafood for years. Guy I know got a small inheritance. Enough for a deposit on a unit or small house. Nope. Seahorse farm. Turns out seahorses are difficult to breed. When I was in high school, one of my friends wanted to start a little coffee shop hot chocolate stand with a cuddle corner and free hugs for anyone who wants them. She offered jobs to our other friends. The idea was that this little business would be operated and staffed by high schoolers. She failed to see the issue with having 16-year-old girls required give free hugs to customers or having to staff the cuddle corner. There was a guy in my town that opened a business that was the equivalent of a brick and mortar version of Craigslist or newspaper classified ads. It was a unit in a strip mall with bulletin boards. You paid to put an ad up and other people came to look at the ads with a small picture. This was after Craigslist existed, not some pre-internet thing. There was no actual merchandise in the store, just crappy pictures of stuff with a contact info. It wasn't even a high foot traffic location. You had to maneuver through a busy intersection, park and go inside to look at a bulletin board. It went under and he tried to blame the landlord because he couldn't get a sign permit for the end of the building even though he had 2 other signs. Monthly 6 toy subscription. You would get a different 6 toy each month. Which is an okay idea, I guess. There's one of those for everything nowadays. But the only problem this guy had is that he wanted the customers to eventually return the toy so he could pass it on to the next customer. He actually got in talks with an owner of a local 6 shop to help him start, but the enthusiasm flattened out quite quickly. Does anyone have that Reddit relationship advice thread? The one where the girlfriend is questioning her boyfriend's intelligence after his great business idea. Soup delivered to people's houses via pipes. Can't believe no one mentioned that guy who went on Shark Tank to pitch a Bluetooth earpiece that you got surgically implanted in your ear canal that you charged by sticking a needle in your ear while you slept. One time many years ago, my friend and I were in line behind a woman who had a shirt emblazoned with the word taint. He inquired about it and it turned out it was her clothing company. She explained that she loved the word taints like taint this, taint that. He explained the popular meaning of the word to her and her face dropped. I was mortified, but he probably did the right thing. Edit. Holy it. I was driving all day today and didn't check Reddit. Turns out my comment karma increased by a full third in one day. Thanks all. I got me some internet points. Also, I'm old and this happened pre-Google. Perhaps around 1999? Maybe she could have hotbotted or excited it. That crazy expensive juicer from several years ago that used proprietary juice packets. You could just poke a hole in the packet and hand squeeze the juice for free to save a few $100s. Edit. In about 2005, my friend's dad tried to start an arcade dart in a small town, just outside walking distance from a school using beat up second-hand machines. To get there from the school you'd have to walk by an established, larger arcade that also sold food. Edit for the actually crowd. I guess it was walking distance, just not a convenient walking distance. Sorry for poor wording. I have a friend whose family has gotten involved in multiple pyramid schemes, and every single time they get into a new pyramid scheme, they claim it's not a pyramid scheme. No, you don't get it. I am the boss. Once I produce 5 clients for my mentor, then I keep all my new clients and they have to get me 5 new clients each. It's people helping people. Dude bought 150k fidget spinners at the height of the craze. It took months to ship out from China and by the time all his had arrived, the mania had ended and the retail price was already near his original wholesale price. Duckin' guy still has fidget spinners today. I guess he may eventually do okay on it, but goddamn. One of the younger dudes in my karate class was going to start a handyman business. 24H. Anything needing to be done. Anywhere in our district. Sounds good. You gonna get a loan and buy a used truck and get some tools? And you never have talk time on your phone. So will you get a landline? 2006. So not super outlandish. No, I'll go on my bicycle. And I'll just use the tools they have. And they can email me when they need service. Right, because when I have water spraying out of my geyser through the ceiling at 3 AM, I'm going to email a dude on a bicycle to come fix it using all the tools and a ladder I don't own. Context: I live in Las Vegas. When I was in my 20s, I was hired by a man who wanted to build MySpace for strippers. His goal was for the men on the site to pay him to follow their favorite strippers and know what clubs they were dancing at and when. He shut the project down after months of paying me when he found out that no stripper would sign up for it. One arsehole tried to exploit people's fears after the 9/11 attacks by marketing parachutes to businesses with offices in skyscrapers. There was nothing special about them. They were normal parachutes. He had a TV interview where he tried promoting how easy it was going to be to get into the harnesses. However, his assistant couldn't get into the harness. He chastised her for it on television. Even after he tried to help her, they couldn't get the harness to fit. Edit: I've been asked to provide a link. Here it is. Also, I didn't expect this to be my most upvoted comment. I volunteered at the start of COVID for a charity shop. They sold clothes. We got a lot of great merch in, but we had limited space. I suggested that we cycle the stock by seasons. As in, summer clothes got put out straight away, but sellable winter clothes got put upstairs to be sold in winter. The manager did not like this idea, except that 90% of the stock was winter wear. That spark joy thing really hit home. So our entire shop was filled with woolly sweaters and Ugg boots in May. Suffice to say, they went out of business. Someone in my neighborhood opened an artisan hot dog restaurant called Everyone's Frank about a decade ago. My dad and I went in once at about 6 PM on a Saturday. We were the only customers, so the owner, who was working the register, chatted us up. He talked about his plans to expand the business to about 15 locations, which was completely delusional. He also talked about how much he spent on the interior redesign, which was pointlessly fancy. The hot dogs cost $9 and tasted terrible. We never went back, and the place was bankrupt within 6 months. My dad always said they'd gone bankrupt. So my friend had an idea that she thought was brilliant. It was to take all tap water and bottle it in parks and sell it, and then use that money to pay for homeless necessities. Really good intentioned, a kind gesture. However, in my country there are free fountains everywhere for drinking. So she spoke to our town's mayor and suggested that all of our water gets put into water bottles and then we sell them beside the water fountains. The mayor destroyed it really quickly with how it would create unnecessary waste. The amount of money you have to spend on wages to have people standing near fountains 24/7. What if people have reusable water bottles? And why doesn't she find a way to collect money for existing homeless programs? Friend got pissed. Still thinks her idea is brilliant. Edit: Everyone is commenting how this is nestled, but I don't think they're reading the post fully. The part that the mayor rejected wasn't reselling tap water. It was taking free public water in fountains, which is maintained by tax money, and then charging for the water again right beside it. It's like standing in a park selling oxygen tanks. It was also just a funny image to me to imagine entry-level workers, most likely young teens, just standing around all of our water fountains 24/7 charging for redundant and wasteful water bottles. The cost of this would be very high and it would probably not generate enough revenue to begin to pay back the wages, let alone contribute to homelessness effectively. I think an idea could be here, but it needs a lot more work and I think she moved on. Somebody thought it would be a good idea to open a dance club in my northern Canadian city with a dress code. 90% of the population is tradesmen and miners who only own car hits and high-vis. Needless to say, it shut down within 6 months. In my country there was a guy who used to sell wood. The problem was he did not have any of it, so he would ask for payment and then not give the product afterwards, hoping that procrastination and time will make the problem go away. He did 4 years in jail. There was a bar that opened in the capital of my country that wouldn't charge you for the drinks, but for the time spent there. Obviously everyone's goal was to drink as much as possible in the least possible amount of time, so they had to shut down soon. Edit: Whoa, this blew up much more than expected. It was interesting to read about similar practices all over the world. It seems that it might not be such a bad idea after all, but it requires certain adjustments to work. In this case there were no restrictions whatsoever, no minimal time etc. You just pay a certain amount per each minute you're inside, so a lot of people just abused such setup and the bar went bankrupt. A lady opened a Southern soul food buffet in my city. It was incredible. Amazing food. On some days, it was a buffet with a rotating menu depending on the day of the week, and those days were not equal. So what happened was people would go on an off day, be unimpressed, not come back, or come on one of the better days, love it, come back on an off day, then never come back. I was so disappointed. I would donate towards reopening that restaurant but with only the optimal menu every day. That woman has serious culinary talent. Quibi. That and something I saw on Shark Tank. These buttons you put on your nightstand so you can tell your spouse you're in the mood for sex without risking rejection. Like, just talk to the person you married maybe? Holy it. Remember the oxygen bar fad a few years back? Who's enjoying sitting on that near zero value asset today? A loudmouth drunk, supposedly an ex-NFL player from way back, opened a fancy pizza place across the street from the small town's old favorite normal pizza place. It was a pretty obvious attempt to put the old place out of business and corner the lucrative small town pizza market. The owner of the new place would get hammered and walk around to random tables to schmooze. He would loudly hit on the ladies in front of their dates. It had really good pizza, but it was horribly overpriced and the portions were tiny. It went out of business pretty quickly. I had a client apply for a $3 million SBA loan to buy a treehouse building franchise. I asked him why he wouldn't just build the tree houses and save the $3 million. He said he'd never considered that. Specialty chocolate shop. It only sold the exact same standard candy bars as any supermarket, but with less of a range, and at 4 times the price. I asked the manager if he had Lindt chocolate balls, upmarket but well-known product, and he said what are those? Also, there was a supermarket 2 doors down. We have a small-time theme park in my state called Evermore and they thought it would be a good idea to try and sue Taylor Swift over her album of the same name. There was a bar that opened up in my city and their entrance was hidden. They did the news story and they refused to tell the paper where it was actually located. To everyone's complete surprise, they only stayed open for a couple of weeks. At a place I used to work, we supplied printing companies with their ink. Being that digital printing is well and truly established at the point, there wasn't a whole lot of business for this type of ink anymore. So there was a lot of competition between suppliers. One of the technicians somehow weaseled his way to the top despite no business experience. When he was told to very simply make more money, rather than go out and find new customers, his bright idea was to make our company's ink weaker, with the intention that our customers will just have to buy more product to complete their jobs. Surprise! The customers didn't like that and went to competitors. Business was closed within a year. Edit. To make some clarifications, the CEOs of the parent company in Japan weren't fully aware of everything this guy was doing to run the business into the ground. There was a lot more stupid he would do. I could probably fill a book with stories from that place. It was not a sound business plan that you could compare to other products and company, because we were already getting some complaints that some of our colors were weak. This is what gave the guy the idea to make them weaker. He was told by several people it was a stupid idea and would not have the desired effect. It would just drive our clients away. He was certain though that they'd all just accept the tier product and pay more for it. Tanning salon in Bangkok, Thailand. Thais idealize snowy white skin and go to huge lengths to avoid the sun on their skin. They've never gotten used to seeing Western women baking in bikinis on beaches. I moved to a new town about a year ago and saw this office building called the Income Store. It didn't look like anyone was there. But this is May 2020 we're talking about, so that wasn't all that weird. I guessed it was a staffing agency or something. But the audacity to call yourself the Income Store. It sounds like the butt of a joke. Money doesn't grow on trees. It doesn't, well then let's go get some at the Income Store. I drove by recently and noticed that the Income Store looked a bit more than just covered and occupied. It was straight up abandoned. So I finally googled it to solve the year-long mystery. It was a Ponzi scheme. My dad has been in hundreds of pyramid schemes. When I was a kid he would always describe how the pyramid worked and I would help him with his meetings. Took me a long time to figure out his get rich plans were really schemes. He still does them. Never been rich off them though. One was Excel, a super cancer beating fruit juice. You give me $5,000. Then you get 5 people to give you $5,000, then they get their own people to give $5,000. I had a customer once that wanted to build an auction website that would put eBay out of business. His hook was he wanted to sell very niche expensive items. To kick the whole thing off he was going to sell Monica Lewinsky's just-stained dress. Out of all the polite questions that emerged from the initial meeting I finally got around to asking how he ended up with the infamous dress. Oh, I don't own that. I was just going to take the final auction bids and offer that to Monica for the dress I see. And your budget for building said empire? $1,500 bucks get me started? Boob therapy. Getting women to become breast therapists to come put a boob on your face whenever you feel bad for therapy and get insurance to cover it. It didn't work. 89% of people who own operate restaurants should never have opened them in the first place. In my college town there was a cereal restaurant. Why make a bowl of cereal at home when you can pay $5 for someone else to do it? Not surprisingly, it closed soon after opening. Specialized cum socks. No, I'm not joking. Top for me has got to be a client of a design firm I used to work at. He was a trucker. His wife was a trucker. He wanted to make a sanitary pad that wouldn't need to be changed. Imagine a pad with a little line running down to a micro vacuum strapped to your leg, exhausting into another leg bag. Basically a pad that sucks the juices into a bag you can chuck in the trash later. Edit. Just to be clear, this was specifically a menstrual pad you are meant to wear for days at a time. Edit 2. Lots of y'all are mentioning the Pure Week. The challenge this one would have had to solve was passing chunky menstrual blood, ladies you know what's up, through a tiny tube. If you're wondering how they solved it, they didn't lol. Also here's another good one. One client wanted a vape that just blew pot smoke into the air for the purpose of hotboxing his car. He had money, so hey, one of the engineers designed a little turbine, like a small turbocharger, the size of a cherry. Damn if it didn't work way too well. But the high-pitched screeching noise that turbine made, sheesh. In our town a few years ago was a zombie-themed donut shop. Yeah, the donuts had cool names and interesting ingredients. But unfortunately, they cost almost twice as much as Krispy Kreme. I mean, kudos to them for trying to cash in on the zombie fever that was going around at that time, and at least they took a shot. But the business didn't do well. They closed down pretty quickly. Someone in Edmonton, Canada opened a dairy store, milk and cheese, and placed it across the street from a large grocery store. He hoped that shoppers would buy everything they needed at the grocery store except their milk and cheese, which the grocery store had ample supply of, and make another trip to their store for milk and cheese. It didn't last. Edit. Wow. I woke up to a whole lot of responses. Many people brought up specialty places, butcher shops, artisanal stores, etc. Which, yes, can be a great thing. The place I'm talking about just supplied the same big dairy milk at the same prices. And no fancy cheese. It was only really convenient when you only needed a carton of milk and didn't want to deal with a huge parking lot and the hassle of a massive store. But like I said, it didn't last long at all. My mother with her wonderful idea of being a baby masseuse. Yes, massages for babies was her idea. Except in order to be allowed to touch random children, you need to be a certified professional, preferably operating in a clinic for obvious reasons. My mother has 0 certificates, 0 diplomas, doesn't take any care of herself at all, has poor hygiene and lived in a sketchy neighborhood. Now imagine an obese woman with greasy hair and worn out clothes saying she wants to give a massage to your baby. Not to mention the fact there's already children's doctors and other professionals who have training and know what they're doing. Unlike her, who watched 2 videos on YouTube and decided she was a professional. Yes mom, great idea. I really can't understand how that business idea of yours didn't take off immediately. My friends and I started a wood chip stock exchange back in elementary school. I think the value of one wood chip, WC, today is roughly $0. 0.00000100922762783. A roller skating rink wanted to teach kids STEM while skating. I couldn't help but laugh during the job interview. I saw something where these men were trying to sell gloves to wear for girls when changing pads or tampons so we don't get blood on our hands. What do these guys think we've been doing our whole life? Besides, we wash our hands. And we don't need gloves to wipe after using the bathroom. Very stupid idea. Quibi, it's like TV but only 5 minutes long and vertical. Money please. Movie pass, I suppose. I did a short stint doing sales for an events company around the time Flappy Bird became a massive success. Remember Flappy Bird? A speaker at one of our conferences, a senior marketing exec at a mid-sized company, was telling me she was going to quit her full-time job and start a business developing apps. Cool. What kind of apps? Oh, stuff for kids. Mostly. I've got this idea for. Proceeds to describe Flappy Bird. Oh, so, like Flappy Bird? No, not exactly. My boss, the head of conferences and a harmless but incessant flirt, actually kept in touch with her for a while. She was quite attractive and, I suspect, surrounded by yes men agreeing with her not Flappy Bird idea. Turns out she did start the company, wiping out a good chunk of her life savings, before eventually folding and going back to marketing. My schoolmate at high school wanted to be a club manager. He organized a concert where he invited kind of famous foreign band to the local club. He paid so much money for them just to arrive plus their expenses at the bar. In the end like 20 people showed up. Half of them were his friends. Fortunately he had a very rich dad, so he paid for that and life went on. The dude started selling art next day. No need to say he failed miserably again. Holy duck, this question sparked a long forgotten and best forgotten memory, but I remembered it now, so here goes. Me and my childhood mate called Barry decided that since he had a big shed we could set up a shop to sell sweets, candy, to the lazy kids that didn't want to walk the 5 minutes to the normal shop. What we done was invest I am assuming about 70 pence, in sweets. Brought them round to his shed. With no signs or advertising, we had hoped that the other kids would just stroll on in and buy our merch at twice the price you could get from the shop. That venture lasted until about tea time and we ate the stock in one sitting. Disclaimer: prices and memories may be blurred to a mixture of time passed and beer intake. There was a Russian potato restaurant below my previous apartment. I ate there a couple of times, but their menu changed so often I never had a favorite potato. Also had potato lasagna, potato cheesecake and potato drinks. It wasn't successful. Not executed yet, but the idea is to buy the most expensive metal detector possible and take it to popular gold panning locations. The fancy machine should be able to detect gold buried deeper than others would spot. I'm still on the fence about YOLOing 20k on the chance of finding 20k worth of gold. Trying to cash in on the rental scooter thing, this company envisions rental pogo sticks everywhere. An old, local pub legend. Friend of mine won a cute 400k-ish, around $500k at the time, on the lottery. So, he decides to buy 2 tanning salons opposite each other thinking that he had an instant monopoly. But the problem came when he started getting them to compete with one another. The managers at each salon began a pricing war and he was broke in 6 months. Not even a bad idea, but I love this. Fort Lauderdale wraps around a much smaller town called Wilton Manors. Wilton Manors is best known for being very, very gay. Drive down the main street and every other business name is a gay pun. Bulls sporting equipment, tops and bottoms apparel, geisha sushi. In 2007 I saw a new place under construction. Sign in place, rock hard. I guessed it would be a music store. Boyfriend guessed jewelry store. It wound up being a gym. The gym didn't do well and shut down pretty quick. Then a Six shop opened up a block away, using the gym sign. That version of rock hard love stuff is still open 13 years later. A dating app that pairs people by the STDs they have in common. Edit, no joke. My cousin was pitching this idea 8 years ago. I was friends with a guy that owned a movie rental place who was both a ducking genius and a complete moron. He used to work for Disney's apparel design section and one day came to them with the idea to make business casual Disney clothes. The idea was that married women mothers were the #1 purchasers at the Disney store, and you could get extra money out of them if you made stuff like simple polos or button-ups with just a little cartoon character embroidered on the chest that they could buy for their husbands. No, Disney said. Our biggest apparel sellers wear those full-size graphic tees. He left Disney and within 5 years Disney had starting selling exactly what he had suggested. He also told me that he was never ever going to carry DVDs because they damaged too easily, and likewise he would never ever rent disc-based video games. VHS and cartridge only. That one didn't work out so well for him. Man at my school thought cryptocurrency faucets, you know, Bitcoin for watching ads, that kind of thing, were a good way to make money. So at lunch and during free periods he would borrow as many school laptops and computers as he could and run every fake faucet website for an hour. He made almost $1 at the end of the school year. Good thing some of it was Dogecoin since it ended up being a little more.